What's up everybody and welcome back to the channel. The first 10 to 12 levels of Helldivers 2 can be quite daunting, especially to new players in the series, since you might not necessarily know what you should be spending your hard-earned requisitions and war bonds on, and since you have such a limited supply of these at the beginning, it's important to make the right decision. I'm gonna give you a super decent and efficient loadout that'll carry you through those first 10 to 12 levels that you can progressively unlock as you unlock more and more materials, and this will even allow you to do challenging and hard missions, which will just further on give you more supplies as you can start building out your own loadouts for you. Ready? Let's go. So starting us off right away in the primary slot, the R63 Diligence is a marksman rifle that is available for purchase on the second page of the standard warbond, aka battle pass. The benefit a marksman rifle has over something like an AR, for example, is the fact that you can pull off accurate shots by switching into first person mode. You could potentially do this with the AR as well, but it's just so much easier with the marksman rifle. And this rifle allows you to, especially when it comes to the robot enemies, deal with a lot of the tougher enemies without having to have a prolonged gunfight with them. By simply shooting, for example, the crit spots like the heads and so on, you can often end the fight before the enemies can even respawn back. And it also has enough power to drop some of the lesser enemies, the smaller guys, in basically one hit. So all in all, just a really efficient weapons package that'll allow you to essentially move really fast, shoot off the shoulder, and then go down sights when you want to put some critical shots in on some very specific enemies. In our secondary slot, we're using the P2 Peacemaker, which is the standard pistol that comes with the game. You don't have to buy it, you don't have to unlock anything, it's available at level 1. Now, the beauty of this loadout that I'm showing you in this video is that you won't necessarily ever have to use your secondary, since the reload on your primary is pretty crisp and you have a bunch of bullets in there, plus your stratagem weapon that I'm going to show you just now is also really good. So this will only really be for situations where you're in a pinch and you're being pushed by enemies. Now, if you have access to the pay to win war bond, which you got with the collector's edition of the game, I can highly advise you to buy the P4 Senator, which is a revolver. This is on the first page of that war bond. You can't miss it. And this is arguably the best sidearm in the game, since it's essentially like a Desert Eagle, Magnum, whatever you want to call it. And it can kill a lot of stuff essentially with one bullet. And because it has decent armor penetration, it's also fairly good at killing some of the tougher enemies in the game, although it has a super slow reload. So either which way, if you have access to this, definitely pick that up, because that revolver is going to carry you long on into the game. Otherwise, the normal pistol is just fine. In our first stratagem slot, we're using the grenade launcher. The grenade launcher helps us with situations where we want a little bit of crowd control, or we want to hit stuff that has a bit of armor on it. Once again, it depends on the situation that you're in. I would say that probably the marksman rifle is going to be just fine to deal with most of the bug enemies that you get, with help of some of the other stratagems that we're going to look at. But when it comes to the robots, sometimes you can also just benefit from just lobbing a bunch of grenades onto these guys, and that's basically going to deal with it. The benefit of the grenade launcher is also the fact that those grenades also work as normal grenades, which means you can use them to close bug holes. So that's just another additional source of ammunition for you that you can use to basically close bug holes. But I do want to mention that something that you have to keep in mind is that there's a limited distance that you can shoot these grenades before the grenade arms. So if something's right up close to you, danger close, and you shoot the grenade, it's not actually going to explode on them, it's going to bounce off them, and what can happen is that can actually hit you or your teammates, which is never really good. But that's the thing, the grenade launcher can be quite deadly in the wrong hands, but can also be quite good in the right hands. So practice using this weapon. It is super versatile, and it seems really weak, but it actually has a lot of nuance and a lot of use. In our second stratagem slot, we want to be using one of the two Guardogs, which is essentially a backpack system that has a small drone that flies around you and shoots at enemies that get close to you. Now, there are two different variants of this. There's the laser version, and then there's the bullet version. Now, arguably, on paper and in certain situations, the laser version is always better than the bullet version. That's simply due to the fact that you have less penetration issues with ammo and that sort of thing, and also because you can have a situation where the laser bot will activate and drag its laser and essentially kill like a bunch of the smaller enemies, which is really good. The other thing that I have found though is that the bullet version of the Guardog seems to be a little bit better at essentially picking out, let's say, some of the more chunky enemies and suppressing them with fire. So you can experiment with either one of these two. I feel like the laser one is better for bugs, and I feel like the bullet one is better for robots. If you can buy both, fucking go ahead. Otherwise, pick whichever one you like most and absolutely use this, as this is like having another person with you. So especially in situations where you deploy solo, and with the server stability being what it is right now as of recording this video, a lot of the times you will find yourself being solo, so having an extra gun with you that's shooting is always a good idea. Third stratagem is a turret. Now you'll start out with the basic turret, and eventually, as soon as you can afford it, you'll buy the Gatling turret. Simply, the Gatling turret is everything that the normal turret is, just dialed up to fucking 69. It shoots faster, it shoots harder, it has more ammo, and just in general is a more lethal package. So pick it up as soon as you can. The good things about turrets is the fact that oftentimes when you extract, it's great to put one of these down because it can close down a lane for enemies that are trying to push your extraction. But it can also be used as ways to cover your sort of, you know, like running away from an area. You can pop one of these and just run past it, and it will make sure that nothing is coming up behind you. Now bear in mind, the enemies can kill these turrets, and they will make a fucking beeline for these things as soon as they see them. And generally speaking, the turret is kind of like better against the bugs than it is versus the bots, and that's simply because the bots have projectiles and they can shoot at them, they can throw grenades, and so they'll deal with these turrets a lot quicker. Placement also matters with the turrets, so try to get creative with this shit. Try to pop them up high, which will keep them alive longer. Put them sort of like behind a little ridge so they're just peeking over, and obviously put them somewhere where they're not cutting your fucking teammates in half. But these turrets can make a situation where, for instance, you come into a bug hole and you get rushed by a whole bunch of enemies. This can thin out the herd like super fast and is really, really helpful at those lower levels. Our fourth and final stratagem slot will be an airstrike of some kind, or an orbital strike if you want to look at it that way. You'll start out with something like just the standard orbital strike, and then as soon as you can afford it, you should be able to pick up the Eagle airstrike. Now both of these are area denial weapons, but they're also ways for you to destroy objectives. So both of these can be used to blow up bug holes, they can be used to blow up factories, and they're just fantastic ways for you to very precisely, or almost very precisely, hit a specific area. There's tons of options when it comes to airstrikes and things like that. You have, you know, incendiary airstrikes like napalm, you have cluster bombs, but all of these can sometimes result in a situation where they don't necessarily hit the target that you intended for them to hit. These two airstrikes that I'm mentioning here, the orbital, just the standard strike, and then this Eagle airstrike, tend to be super accurate and hit very close to the beacon where you throw it, so you can, with practice, become very good at exactly putting it where it needs to be so it kills exactly what you need it to kill. The benefit of both of these is that they also deal fairly decent damage to whatever they're hitting. So some of the heavier enemies can and will be rocked by this shit. So especially in some of the lower difficulties, this is all you need to be able to deal with some of the, you know, the rushes that you experience from bile throwers and things like that, because you're not necessarily dealing with a lot of charges and things like that yet. Then last but not least, before I let you go, just a quick little discussion surrounding which armor you should be wearing. Now, first and foremost, when it comes to your choice in armor, of course, there's your headpiece, your chest piece, and your cape. Your headpiece and your cape don't matter because they don't necessarily have fluctuating stat values or any additional perks. But your chest piece matters because of two reasons. First of all, your weight, so whether you choose a light, a medium, or a heavy armor. And then last but not least, in that, also your perk. Now, when it comes to light, medium, or heavy is extremely situational, and especially at the beginning of the game can be avoided because you aren't necessarily taking all that much more damage, and it is far more important to be super mobile around the battlefield. I personally feel that light armor is meta and is the right way to go. You can take less damage with that, but you are super zippy and you can get around the battlefield very fast, plus your stamina recharges hella quick. Medium is also damn good, but more importantly, you should be looking at your perks. Now, there are a bunch of different ones available here, but the main one that you should be keeping an eye out for and that you should be trying to get is the one that increases your throw distance by 30% for any of the stratagems that you throw. Once you start using this, you will realize how beneficial it is for you to be able to arc your throws in a super long distance and from further away without necessarily aggroing the enemies. So in the case of like pushing on a factory or pushing into a bug nest, you can drop your stratagems from much further away and most likely annihilate almost all the enemies without them knowing that you're there by peeking your head over the fucking top or essentially throwing and missing the throw because you land short. So absolutely keep a lookout for this. This is super good, and that's going to be it for the video. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it this far. I'll be the first one to admit that your loadout in Helldivers 2 is super subjective, and absolutely the type of mission that you're trying to do, what you're going up against in terms of enemies, the difficulty that you're playing on, whether you're playing solo or with other players, are all things that should affect your loadout, because you should be synergizing these things as much as possible. However, this loadout in this video, the idea behind it was that it is a Swiss Army knife and can deal with 95% of the issues that the game will throw your way. If you enjoy content like this, consider giving the channel a sub. I will be bringing more Helldivers 2 videos to the channel. Also, let me know in the comments down below things that you potentially would like me to discuss or give you help on. And I do also want to take the opportunity to give the streams a shout out. I stream exclusively on Kick on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. If you want to hang out with your boy, I play Helldivers 2 on there with community members, as well as a ton of other games. We'd love to have you. But other than that, it's just super important to me that you have a fantastic morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. Till next video, fucking cheers.